Hey legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Plenty going on in the AFL. Port Adelaide hot streak at the moment, 9 straight. We've got Gold Coast, big comeback up there in Cairns. Dirty Pies head out west to play West Coast, got the dub too. And I have to say this, there is a massive, massive guest reveal at the end of this. One of the biggest, now I'm going to say it, the biggest athlete we have had on this podcast. We are revealing who it's going to be, so make sure you don't miss that. But without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Now, I got to mention this because we love love in this podcast. And we love whenever we get love from y'all. And whenever you subscribe to the podcast, it does help out quite a bit. As much as it seems it's a small act to do, just to click a button. But to subscribe and download keeps this thing going, keeps this thing happening, and keeps our sponsors happy. And speaking of sponsors, we'd love to have a sponsor. So if you know anyone, be a friend. Tell them to come on to the podcast. We'll pump them up. We'll give them whatever they want, to be honest. But we'll go into the podcast from here, Braden. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, mate. That was a really good spiel. We do love love. And I'm looking forward to, I just want to sell things. I think I'm born to sell. But let me sell you this. It's my clanger of the week.
Oh, yes.
And it's a bit of a journey, so come with me. So Blitzarves for Geelong having a shot about a metre out. Not too far, but he's got to kick it around the corner. So a bit hard.
Yep.
He's got Bailey Dale standing that distance away looking like he's just about to sprint in and just cut him off. So what happens? Brian Myers like, mate, he's a bit too close. So he grabs him by the jumper. This is when the game's in the balance.
Oh, jeez.
Full fistful of jumper and rips him back. And he falls to the ground. Bailey Dale falls over. Umpire lets it go. Umpire lets it go. So I was going to give the clanger to Brian Myers, but if you can get away with it, get away with it. So I know we like to pump up the umpires.
I'm not saying it. This is Braden's quotes, and I'm on.
But come on.
Find me.
You got to do something about that. You can't be ripping blokes to the ground by their jumper. Good on Brian Myers. Got away with it. Probably wouldn't advise doing it in the future.
Yeah, we'll do it again now.
Got the goal, got the W, but we'll get into the Geelong game later. But what is your clanger of the week?
I'm throwing myself under the bus this week. Now, I was, you're waiting for this one.
Get around it.
I was on the front bar this week on Thursday. Great experience. Lovely people, lovely producing staff, everything else. Great time. Check it out. Good fun. Did have a bit of a hiccup, though. Now, they asked me a question, said, what's one of the weird things that Americans think Aussies do all the time? And I said, they think that Australians like to drink Fosters. And then I looked down, and I looked to the left, and I looked to the right, and I looked in front of me, and I saw about 8 different Furphy icons everywhere. The beer in front of me was a Furphy. The tap over there was a Furphy. There was Furphy shit left and right. And I've gone, oh no, I've just thrown the major sponsor under the bus and promoted Foster's over their paying sponsor, Furphy. And I shat the bed. I tried to make up for it, but I think I just dug the hole deeper. It was a little bit embarrassing on live TV, I must say that.
At least no one would have noticed, mate. It's just the million people watching around the country. And the fact that you're it's a fully decked out bar set.
Yep.
All sponsored by Furphy. Get around them. We love a bit of Furphy. If they want to sponsor us.
Hey, happy to. We would love a zero alcohol beer. That'd be fun.
We would love
throwing that out there.
Anything. I'm born to sell, Mace.
He's born to drink piss.
Yeah, get one of those in. I'll be happy. Just hook it to my veins, and it'll make the podcast a hell of a lot more interesting.
Be very wild. Be loose.
You drink the zeros. I'll drink the full gear, and we'll go. Well, let's see where we end up.
Good Lord, that'd be a hell of a sight to see. Well, we'll get into this week's games. Few bye weeks for Brisbane, Freo, St Kilda, and Sydney. So if you're a fan of them, listen in for the rest of the tune.
I wonder what Big Rossi's doing in his bye week. A bit of Buffalo Soldier.
He might be in Denver with Dimma.
Another one we'll get to. Let's jump into the games, Mace.
The first game that was of the round was Melbourne versus Carlton. We pumped this up last week as maybe being a big game for either team that won.
I mean, it was still a big game, but geez, did they stink it up. Because looking ahead at the fixture, it was like, this was pretty much the only good game of the round on paper. But a lot of other games delivered, but geez, these guys didn't. Melbourne Carlton was just an absolute stink fest. It was very low scoring, 8 goals to 6, obviously Melbourne's way. Yeah, there's not much good stuff to take out of this one. One thing that I did notice, obviously a lot of heat on Mackay coming into it for his inaccuracy. And last week that he mentioned that he can see it wearing on his family, and in particular his mother. Now, in the rooms, they showed his mum getting around him after the last week's game. So this week, they just set up a camera on mum sitting in the crowd. I thought it was a bit harsh, you know. Like, luckily, he came out and kicked the first 2, so it was a good news story. Mum was up and about.
Yeah.
But she was sitting there. She was definitely wearing it. I can see what he's talking about. She's sitting there with fingers crossed, like praying to the
footy gods.
Praying to the footy gods that he could kick a goal. And he delivered the first couple. What did you see in this game? It was, like I said, very dour affair.
Yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't as high scoring as you probably expect from Melbourne. They played a bit of a defensive, I think, mindset in some of it. Like, they were taking marks left, right, and center in their defensive 50, Melbourne. And they had some big goal scorers. You know, Max Gawn, you know, the little sealer outside 50. Love whenever a big fella, you know, just kicks a big goal from outside 50. And then, of course, there was Pickett. Had an absolute laser through the sticks. I don't know. And hey, happy birthday. 22nd birthday over the weekend, Pickett. Shout out. Hope you had a good time. Hope you had a great birthday kicking a snag. But no, Melbourne was too good on the day. They kind of felt like they gotten ahead early and then just kind of kept Carlton, you know, at bay for the rest of the game. And it wasn't like they were kind of, you know, going out. And they were just like, oh, no, we know that we can maybe subside and maybe I guess like dry them up as far as their inside 50s and just kind of played a bit of a defensive mindset.
Melbourne was pretty inaccurate. So it was all around just not fun to watch. It was a real, you know, I was doing some other stuff. I was doing some chores around the house, so I was just keeping an eye on it in the background. It was one of those types of games. Now, the next game, Port v Hawthorn. Jeez, it was a real massacre. And I was, you know, warning signs were out there pretty early because Port was walking through the middle of the ground. And at halfway through the second quarter, you know, it's almost 100-16 or whatever it was. And Jeremy Finlayson, 5 goals with 12 minutes left in the second.
He's got, hey, fins up. Finlayson with the bag. Yeah, he absolutely smoked him. And at that point, you're kind of like, oh, this is going to be a rough day for Hawthorn. But hey, credit to them, though. They did come back in the second half, and they made a bit of an effort to make it a bit of a game. But Power's just on it, like I said, on a streak at the moment. 9 straight. They're really firing ever since, you know, we decently beat them whenever we played them last, and that was their last loss. But ever since then, they've just been on fire, I feel like, just absolutely getting it.
Yeah, it was very impressive. One thing out of that, Finlayson absolutely dominated in the first half, first quarter. He only kicked 5 for the game. So it was just a real condensed patch of just lighting it up. I want to know, have you ever played in a game where you've had a teammate that you've just been watching just, you know, obviously you had the 2018 prelim, so I don't want you to talk about yourself. But surely you've had a teammate that's just lit it up and you just sit there and get to watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah, it seems like Nick Dacos every single week is that person. But we've never had, I guess, per se, like a forward that's like our go-to only option forward, you know? Like, I talk about these big teams with these big forwards like King and stuff like that for Gold Coast. We've never really had that. We've had it kind of like spread across our forward line. So probably not as much that, but you have noticed whenever players, I think like Jordan DeGoey a couple of weeks ago, he was just on fire, like everything through the middle against North Melbourne. Like he was just bumping off people, bang, 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 like, and then kicking it inside 50. And it was just insane. Like you see that kind of stuff, I think, and like the ability for midfielders to get the ball and just break packs and stuff like that. But it's one of those, I guess, situations whenever you have someone that's on fire, it's kicked 5, man, the ball's going to him. You gotta think like Ruffy whenever he played his last game, you know, like the ball, everything inside 50 was going to him. Like he was going to kick it back on the day because he was going to get about 20 looks inside 50. And I feel like Finlayson, like whenever you're in that zone, you've kicked 5 early ones. You're like, man, could be a 15-goal game. I'm just saying. Could be 15 goals today if we keep going at this pace. But no, as a credit to him, and he's one of the, he's had obviously a very, very tough time with his wife and everything that's going on. And it was a beautiful moment there with the kiddos and the wife of the game. And I think with all the media attention that's kind of gone around that and, how open they've been about that whole situation, it was a feel-good moment for the weekend. It'd
be remiss of us not to mention Big Suv last week when you played North Melbourne. He was just clunking everything. hard to stop that bloke. But moving on, we got Bruce, also a nice milestone to touch on. Kicked his 500th goal. First two were posters. So you start sweating going like, God, how long am I going to have to wait to kick this 500? But yeah, he went on and had a pretty decent game. Like we said, Hawthorn going on to score 96 points for the game.
Yeah, 96 is, I mean, like, you look at the Melbourne versus Carlton game, neither one of them got to 96. So for a team that got decently beat, to at least put up 96 and not fold over is a credit to them.
Hawthorn fans, you just got to look for those little signs each week.
Little wins every week.
Jumping into the Western Bulldogs Geelong game, probably on paper the second best game for the round. Out of the Melbourne Carlton game and this, and it was a bit better. Plenty happening in this one. Jez, we're always on Jez watch.
Oh, Jez watch.
Two goals, 21 touches. Give him a pass.
Yeah, it's a pass.
That's a pass. That's
a pass.
That's just a pass. And Stewart, 28 touches, 10 marks, coming out of the back line, did plenty. Now, an old mate of ours, Adam Treloar, probably the story of the game.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Went off seconds into the first quarter. Everyone, head in hands, walking off, shots of him going down the race, and he throws his mouth guard. So everyone feared the worst.
Yeah.
Now, he's down in the rooms. He misses 10 minutes at the start of the game, comes back out. Gets a massage, a magic massage. I don't know what they did down in the room.
Magic spray, the soccer players get the magic spray, and all of a sudden they're back to good.
Back out on the field, he had 31 touches, 11 tackles, and kicked a bursting running goal outside 50. That's
safe to say the hamstrings are okay.
It's insane. I don't know what happened in that little period of time, but he missed the 10 minutes of the first quarter and still had 31.
He's one of my favorite players in the league. Nicest human you'll ever meet. Wish him nothing but the best. But yeah, I thought that was very weird. He just kind of, with him and his hamstring injuries in the past and everything else, like you just instantly go into that mindset of, oh my gosh, he's done it again. It's another 4 to 6, like another setback for him in his career. And you go into that kind of negative thought mode, but it was awesome to see him come back out and just murder it. And you're like, oh, I guess we're okay. All right. Sounds good. Let's move on.
It was so bizarre, but very happy for him. Now, Geelong got the win, and it's a massive win for Geelong. We were pushing the panic button last week, and now maybe ease off the panic button a little bit. But Geelong won without Danger, Guthrie, Duncan, Radaglia, Stanley, and Holmes. So pretty big win for them to snatch that one up, and it was pretty much head-to-head the whole way, and then Geelong took the lead in the second half of the third, and then ran away with it in the fourth. So, yeah, very interesting. And there's a few troubling signs up forward. They had O'Donnell kick his first goal, which is great to see after a handful of games without one. Jamara not being overly accurate this season. So that's something that he needs to straighten up. And they don't seem to be targeting Norton, their big key forward that can run and jump and split packs. So I don't know. They just got to... It's been an ongoing issue for them. They got Rory Lobb up there in the off-season, so I don't know. Hopefully it comes good for them. They've dropped a couple of games that they probably should have won. So now it just makes the journey home a little harder, but they're still well in the race.
One person that's actually playing really well, Tim English. Good Lord. 30 hitouts, 8 tackles, 12 marks, 27 disposals as a ruckman. This guy is just carrying them. It's a freak. Absolute freak of a ruckman at the moment. He's one of the best in the league, probably statistically. So it's a credit to him. He keeps doing it well whenever, the game's up, down, all around. He seems to still be a shining star every single week. So credit to him.
And I feel like every other year, they're like, oh, the ruck position is dead. And then it comes back and then it dies and then it comes back. It feels to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like the ruckmen are well and truly back and they're doing some big things this year.
I hope so, because that keeps me employed. So, no, it's good. I think they're definitely undervalued. I like to think it's the most unselfish role in the whole team. Your whole point of being out on the field is to give the ball to other players, and that is the most unselfish act I think you can have in football.
You just got to run around, copping knees in the back, and
people jumping into you, trying to take hangers on you all the time, It's not a glamorous job, Braden. It's not a glamorous job.
We move into Gold Coast Adelaide. Second game in as many weeks up in Cairns, TIO Stadium.
Getting some love up there.
And it's the Gold Coast second home. Boy, oh boy. Back-to-back wins. Massive for the Suns. And
Hey, is he back?
Lukosius kicked 5 back-to-back on the trot.
A bag.
That's crazy.
I'll make this statement. I think Gold Coast, best team playing in the humidity. I don't know if that's a statistic out there, but I think them in the humid, elite.
Up there in Queensland where it's nice and humid, as we all know where Cairns is. But they did trail 35 points halfway through the second.
They did. Adelaide's a good team.
Yeah, and now they've dropped a couple. They dropped this one. They dropped that one against the Dogs where they didn't play Tex Walker. I know I bring it up every week, but could prove costly for them. But Gold Coast, well and truly in the finals race, and wouldn't you love to see it? And the finals race, well and truly open.
I think Gold Coast get Tuke Miller back in the end of the year. They're going to go on a bit of a run, and I've got them finishing top 8. I don't know. This might be the first time Gold Coast has ever gone to finals this year. In my mind, I think they'll make it.
We'll clip that up and we'll bring it back up when they make the finals. But as we always say, we love Big Stewie Jew getting the W.
Old Maccas.
Just take that little pressure valve, just unwind it a little bit. GWS, Richmond, you know, these teams sitting outside the 8, but always seem to play a healthy little like rivalry game against each other. Dimma. Now, I love this. Did you see this?
Dimma watch.
Dimma watching from a pub in Denver on the other side of the planet Earth, but he was loving it. First photo, it was just him and 3 other mates just enjoying a nice little quiet one. Tuned back in 20 minutes later, he's got the whole bar drinking shots. They got the game on the TV. Oh, he's just unwound, hasn't he?
Oh, he's loving life now. And he's got out of the Melbourne bubble and he said, you know what? It's time to teach the rest of the world what this game is.
We all know that he's got the investment in the little marijuana company. So he might just be 420 blazing it up over there in the States, as you can legally do.
You can legally do it there.
And you can do
Not
it in
saying he is.
You can do it in Denver, can't you?
What, smoke weed?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can smoke weed in Denver whenever you want. You can
smoke weed every day.
They just legalize mushrooms over there.
Yeah, boy. We mightn't see him again. He'd come back just full hippie mode, Dimma. But it was good to see. And Dimma's former club, the Richmond Tigers, got a big W. It was the caretaker, I'm going to say his name's Mick Walter or something, got the win. And it was
spot on.
And it was good to see. And some of the old Tigs doing the job with Jack Rewald kicking 5 snags. What did you see in this game, mate?
Yeah, it's good to see Tasmania's new coach kick 5 in a game. It was awesome. Like, it was such a good back and forth game. It is good to see the old dogs, Jack Rewald, kick a bag. It just makes me feel like, you know, maybe I've got 10 more years in me. But no, he's going really well. Obviously, he had the game winner, actually, the one, the decider. It was Pickett, but a different one than you think. Marlon Pickett, game winner, essentially on his left, bursts through a pack, just clean with the ball, kicks the goal, and that kind of seals the thing. But yeah, this is a bit of a rivalry here, GWS and Richmond. I feel like there's 2 fiery sides, you know? You've got Toby Green over there at GWS, loves the scuffle. Richmond, don't back down from those very often. So it's always a bit of a clash between these two up there in the beautiful showgrounds, Sydney.
Out in the Wild West.
Out in the Wild West where dogs and horses roam whenever there's not footy.
And speaking of Toby, there was an awesome little moment where Dion Prestia had to go back and kick a clutch set shot for his side. And as he's approaching the goals, he kind of looks over and you can see a smile come on his face. It goes to the wide shot and Toby's just giving him gumption. Just
love it.
Flapping his gums at him, sledging him. And Dion, as he does, goes back and just slots it through and just get out of here, Toby. It was good to see. I love that in the footy because we saw it the other week. Toby just giving it to Jez Cameron.
Yeah.
Jez Cameron just buckled a little. Oh, but but not Dion. So it was good to see. Prayers up. We got a prayers up. Brett Daniels just can't get a good run of it. He's done another injury, so he's done his hamstring, and prayers up for him, and hopefully he gets back out there soon because he was having a hell of a game.
Yeah, and
he was just finding form. So unlucky for Brett, but that's footy.
That's footy. Luckily, it's at this time of year, not the end.
The last game was pretty good, GWS Richmond, but I'd say this was probably close to the juiciest game of the round because it was back and forth affair. And gee willikers, did North Melbourne put an absolute scare through Essendon? Everyone talking Essendon up. Oh, you're going to make finals? Are you going to win the first final? Mate, you got to get there first. And by getting there, you got to beat North Melbourne.
North Melbourne, credit to them. Week after week, they're putting a fight up.
They're showing
They're
up.
losing, but they're putting a fight up. Like, it sucks. I can't imagine like them. It'd be so frustrating to know you're in these games whenever a lot of people probably wouldn't even like give you a chance going into it. But you come to the pointy end of the game and you're actually in it. Like, you're a chance of winning it. Like, you're pushing like every single team to the final like siren. And unfortunately, it's just not falling their way. It'd be so utterly frustrating. But it's a credit to them because these young kids who, probably wouldn't have the, the maturity to say like, okay, you would think like a young group, you'd be like, oh, they're just going to fold over whatever it is, but they're showing maturity in their sense of being like, nah, every single week we're going to show up, we're going to give our best, and we're going to fight teams to the very end. Like, and it's a credit to them.
Well, and it's exactly what you said. The older guys. So Jai Simpkin unfortunately went off with concussion.
Yeah.
And then even Jack Zeeble probably had a couple of mistakes towards the end that were very costly, kicked a couple out in the full in a row. But it was the young kids. So you got Sheasel, Phillips, and Wardlaw. It was great to see because they just put them in the guts right towards the end of the game and said, go on, have a crack at winning us this game. And they, to their credit, although they didn't win the game, they really showed up in a massive way. And it was very impressive to see so much upside for this team coming through.
Good signs for North Melbourne. Maybe, I don't know when finals will be for them, but I think if they continue on this trajectory and keep themselves in games like this, success will not be far away for North Melbourne fans.
Oh, there you go.
That's a bit of a clip that one up, Braden.
That's big from you. You haven't given them many compliments. They're just, all you want is a compliment from your dad growing up. And you just don't.
I don't think I'm the father of North Melbourne.
You just don't get them, and you're crying out for a little crumb. Well, it's almost like North looking at Papa Cox. Going, give us a little crumb for the year, and he's just, here, have a little compliment. Thank you very much, Mason. But what I will say, let me give you 8 syllables. Massimo D'Ambrosio, because he kicked the winner coming on as the sub. Now, isn't that just a magic moment?
Yeah, great moment coming in as a sub, getting the winner. I mean, you can imagine being on like the fringe, right? You're a sub for a team. You're on the bit of the fringe of making the 22, and to be able to show up, kick the game winner, it's going to get the coach to give a bit of faith to you. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I won't be sub next week. Thanks, Scotty. Yeah. But one thing, you got to speak on this because you're part of the big man fraternity. And we just gave him a pump up, said the big man back. Well, I mean, it still worked well. But I don't know if you saw this. Phillips.
6 of 6, Braden.
He got around 1, got around 2, went around. He was like, I'm lighting this baby up. Went to hit the big snap across the body to kick the big goal, and it hit the wrong side of the ball, went up in the air and the opposite direction, but landed in the arms of a teammate who ended up kicking the goal. So it's a good assist, right?
It's a great assist. I don't care how you do it. Me over the weekend, I had a little shank off to Bobby Hill, and he marked it and ran and kicked a goal, and that counts as an assist.
Don't tell people it's a shank. It looked good on the TV.
Oh, I mean, sorry. I saw him out of the corner of my eye and just said, you know what, lace out, buddy. Lace out there, Bobby.
It was great, though, because we had Jake Stringer come over and just, little pat on the butt and said, nice pass, mate.
Just gotta laugh. Phillips is like myself, we're not the most in traffic clutch players, you would probably say. And the way he kind of like had it in space, he kind of shat himself for a little bit. Like I'd be the exact same. I'm like, oh no, someone come for the handball receive as soon as possible. And as soon as that happened, he goes, well, I guess I'll go for a snap here. Not very often do you probably see Big Phillips having a snap. And I think after this weekend, you probably won't see it for a very long time again.
And there was a moment when Stringer came over to him that he tried to explain himself. He's like pointing over like, oh, I saw a guy over there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it went well.
Just let it be.
It went well. Let it be. Now let's jump into the game that everyone is wanting to know about. West Coast v Collingwood, and my goodness, this was almost the biggest meltdown of all time. I feel like West Coast get up for Collingwood.
Yep,
there's like
every year.
There's a rivalry there. I don't know if it's more on their side than Collingwood's side or if it's reciprocated. But first quarter came out strong, kicked a bunch of goals. What happened? Chuck her into cruise control and just foot off the accelerator, or what was the deal? Because they came storming back into it in the second and third and made it a very difficult game. Yeah,
the second and third, they really turned it around. I don't know from their game plan if they changed things up, but Dom Sheed, hell of a game. He was everywhere. I was like sitting there, I was like tap out, and then it's one of those moments as a ruckman, you tap it down, and just in a blink of an eye, he goes, bang, Dom Sheed through, bang, see you later, inside 50. And I'm like, where the fuck did he come from? Like, just, he was on fire on the night. Yeah, we kind of, we got done in the middle for the second and third quarters, and that's kind of, we started losing territory, and, we started losing that side of the bottle, and The West Coast had a bit of a run. Well, I can credit to them. They, it's kind of like North Melbourne, like you're at the bottom of the ladder, you can give up, but, they continue to fight. They continue to put on. Like they had injuries to one of their best players, Barras, before the game goes down. Hearn goes down after that. They've got 2 on the bench, and they're still fighting it out. Like it's a credit to them. And, they put up a decent fight over the weekend. Luckily enough, we stuck to our game plan, just kind of ran over them at the end. But for those second and third quarters, the place was a bumping. Optus Stadium was hyped. All these West Coast supporters all of a sudden came out of the woodworks and was like, hey, we're a chance here.
If you're not a Collingwood supporter, you got to admit, it was very good to see, a lot of pressure being on Adam Simpson and his crew over there, and they have been ravaged by injury. And for their crowd to rock up, I think it was 40,000 people at Optus on a Sunday arvo to watch their team, they're walking into the fire here. You're versing the team top of the ladder. It was great to see their fans show up, and yeah, you're right. They were turning it up. The volume went to 11 in those second and third quarters as they realized that they had a sniff. It seemed like they probably ran out of juice, to be fair. Like you said, Barras out pre-game, Hearn with a hammy, West with a knee, and obviously Hewitt with a concussion. It looks like Geordie De Goey probably misses. I don't know. I normally hear a bit of chatter both ways from the community about, like footy's soft or whatever. Not a lot of that this week, to be fair. It looks pretty cut and dry, but we'll wait to see what comes out of that tribunal. But one of your other teammates, Jack Crisp.
Crispy.
Gee willikers.
You got to go to credit. 200 in a row for Jack Crisp over the weekend. I can't even fathom playing 200 games in a row. That's like, 25? That's essentially, 8 years? Playing every single game.
Yeah, pretty much.
25 games a year. Call that for 8 years. Every single game. That's insane to think. Not one injury. Not one suspension.
100%. Every time you got like a little niggle or you got a flu or something, you'd be keeping that quiet.
My gosh. Can you imagine during COVID times? Oh, man.
Sweating.
He would have just been like, nah, feel nothing. I'm good. Good to go.
Oh, Crispy, your leg fell off. No, that leg? No, I got another leg.
I don't know what.
But yes, it was a great accomplishment. 200 games. Well played, Crispy, especially with the start of his career. Starting off in Brisbane, in and out of the squad, gets traded. The whole steak knives fiasco.
Hates that nickname too, by the way. He's on the podcast. Listen to the episode. That's great. Great little insights as well, Jack Crisp.
Go back and have a listen. Now, we've got some dot points down here.
Things you want to talk about in there.
Some dot points. So Will Hoskin-Elliott goes down with an ankle. This is a very interesting one. So I want your thoughts on this. So Will Hoskin-Elliott goes down, holds his ankle. There's a bowl up in his vicinity.
Yeah.
Now he stands back up. The ump goes, let's wait for Will. He's back up. All right, let's ball it up. Will hears that and goes back down to the ground, soccer spec. And he's like, Will's back down. Let's wait for Will. So the whole game stops for Will and his rolled ankle. Everyone's just waiting for him. The docs come out from Collingwood. They lift him up, double shoulder ride off the ground. Everyone's waiting for Will, right? Now this is, foreign territory.
Yeah.
Because we don't see a lot of let's hold the game up for a rolled ankle. Do you know what happened here? Is this a rule? Is this a new rule? Existing rule? Like normally they just play around these types of things unless it's like very serious. They call for a stretcher or a concussion or it seems like you can manipulate this situation.
The ankle roll, if you saw the replay, the ankle roll is probably quite gruesome.
That's a legit ankle roll.
Yeah, it looked pretty bad. And it's one of those things like you can't really put pressure on it. So then I don't know, like he's in the vicinity of the stoppage. So yeah, imagine there's 12 players around that area. They're all going to be, smashing into each other, trying to get the ball. And then Will's like sitting in the middle of it in the fetal position. Like, is that ideal for him? No. So like the umpire has to kind of stop play, which I understand. But then Will not being able to get out of the area because you can't walk because you need your foot makes the whole situation a bit awkward. And it was kind of like everyone just stopped and was like, what do we do here? Kind of what's going to happen? And we kind of just waited for essentially the physio to get him out of the area to be able to get him off. But this kind of raises the question around, do you bring a player off the ground outside of the gates? I always thought it really weird in this game that you have to go through the boundary gates and there's this little like window. And even if you're injured, you got to run all the way across the field to go to these little gates that's 150 meters away or wherever it is. And the play just goes on. So I don't know, like with something like this, do we, we talked about this earlier, was like, do we say, as soon as you put an arm around a player to like hobble him off, essentially that player is nil and void in the game. Like that player cannot touch the ball, can't be part of the play, can't do anything. He has to go straight to the boundary from there, right? Has to go straight through the gates. And then at that point, whenever an arm is around him, then a player can come onto the ground. Because the biggest thing is the IFL doesn't want stoppage in the game. They want a free flow as much as possible. They don't want to sit there and like wait for a player to get off. So do you allow a player that's replacing him to come from the boundary while he's still in play to be able to replace that position and then just have that player as someone that's off? That's the only way I think can kind of, I guess, make everyone happy. But it was kind of interesting over the weekend where he just sat back down and then we had to wait again. And everyone's just kind of like, okay. And then you kind of start questioning, like, well, how bad is it? And it's, well, does it really matter? Like, it shouldn't really matter. But then there's the opportunity, I guess, for someone to take advantage of this later and down the road.
So we all know players and coaches take advantage of rule changes in certain situations.
Yeah.
I would say with that, one, if you just take them off the closest boundary, it's a long walk back to the bench. It's probably like 3 or 4 times longer to get around the oval instead of going the most direct route. So there's that. But there is an instance where you could just claim that you've hurt yourself and sit on the ground at a stoppage in a big final. If you need to fix up your defensive structures, fix up your forward line, get everyone in position. If it's in the absolute clutch moments of a final, 2 minutes left, you're down by 6 or you're up by 6, and all it would take is a midfielder go, actually, I tweaked my knee. It was one of those real innocuous ones, and sits down on the ground and waits for the trainer to come out.
Yeah.
And you have to wait for them to come off the ground and you get to replace them. It's a real interesting one for me because, like we said, we don't really see it that often. And then it's like, even the commentators on the broadcast, they were questioning the severity of the injury, which you don't want to do.
You don't want that, yeah.
You don't want to get into that territory. But if you do make that the rule, it opens it up for that manipulation, which does bring in the questions of the severity of the injury. So it's a real interesting one. And it was just weirder because Hosk was up, and then when he heard the umpire, he just sat back down.
Yeah.
And it just added another layer of confusion to the whole situation.
Thought he could try to hobble off, then realized he couldn't put any pressure on the foot. And he was like, oh, I actually can't like even leave this area. But that's the duty of care the IFL, the umpires have to have for players, is to make sure they're not in the battle lines, essentially, of the ball getting around. Because if you gotta imagine, if he's sitting there and the ball just lands next to him and people just crash onto him, if you've done a knee or something like that, you could make it worse.
But you probably got to look at situations like the concussion protocol. If you come off with concussion, you got to spend X amount of time on the bench.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you have to bring in that kind of penalty so players don't just do it. Because Will Husk and Elliott look, done for all money. Then 5 minutes later, he's up on the bike on the sidelines riding away.
So maybe it's a 5 minute, 5 minutes still on the ground or off the ground. Maybe that's however, I don't know. Hey, tell us how you're going to fix it. Hey, people, you got an answer? Tell us. It's
a very interesting one. And obviously, Bo McCreary subbed out of the game with what appears to be like an ankle injury.
I think so, yeah.
So hopefully he comes back in not too distant future. And it's not too bad because he's a very important player to your squad.
He is. We got some players fighting kind of for that spot too. We've got Guinea, obviously, and Bobby who are playing kind of similar positions. And Bo's kind of known to be our pressure forward in the forward half. Obviously, everyone knows him for his very, very stern tackles, slinging people onto the ground.
He doesn't sling.
Sorry, throwing people. What can we say?
Placing people on the ground.
Softly, gently, placing them with a cushioned pillow underneath onto the ground while he's over the top of them. I don't know. This sounds like a sex thing now. Anyway, so he's one of our best pressure forwards. And we hope he's all right for the big match that's coming out, the Queen's birthday match. Apologies. King's birthday, RIP.
Long live the king. We won't move on before we touch on your game. 14 touches, 2 snags, 21 hitouts, 6 marks. I was going to ask you if you're playing next week because I imagine your shoulders would be very sore after carrying them in the first half.
No.
You did plenty. Let's touch on that little kick out to Bobby because you're in traffic. You dodged 1, you dodged 2. You flicked out the kick because you saw Bobby in the corner of your eye and he ran in, kicked the goal. You did plenty out there.
Every time I see Bobby in space, he kind of looks around like, just go! No one's catching you if they're behind you. Just go, brother. And so he's like looking to like bring the team into it. I'm like, bro, if there's paddocks in front of you, just take off. I don't care. No one's catching you.
I feel like the cheeky glance back is more just to be like, you can't catch me.
See ya.
It's so good. We had another little jack in the box moment.
We did.
You, Andrew Gaff, he had to kick it probably like 30 meters.
Yeah.
But he's got to kick it up 30 meters to get over your tall ass.
It becomes 50.
So are you claiming that one?
Yeah, claiming that one for sure. You missed it. So Phil Cox, I don't know if you saw the audio of him. He's hyped about Jack in the Box. So I'll have to clip something into that one, but he's all over it. And then, yeah, almost kicked one outside 50. I actually thought that was going in, and then it just post. I was like, well, that's awkward.
That Filthy Phil on the mic last week, he whipped out the old Chewy on the boot.
Chewy on the boot.
So good.
Phil Cox, my father, is becoming an Australian day by day.
It's very impressive. Knows a lot about football. Knows more than both of us combined, I would say.
Seriously does.
Now, let's have a little preview forward into the King's birthday match because it's a massive game coming up for both clubs.
Yep.
Melbourne a bit shaky, but still well in touch with top 4. Collingwood luckily got the win over West Coast. Ended up doing it quite easily. 60-point margin or so.
Yeah.
How do you feel going into the King's birthday game?
It's exciting. Like, I think Clayton Oliver will probably come back from Melbourne. They'll have a decent side, and so will we. And it's going to be an exciting game like that. King's birthday on a Monday, and just the event of the fundraising. This is kind of what I picture whenever I first came here. I was like blown away by the generosity of Australians, and like this round kind of personifies that whole thing of Freezem and D, and getting around this whole thing with Neil Danaher being obviously the idol and the icon to this whole event. It's been phenomenal to be a part of it over the years. The amount of money that gets raised, everyone wearing beanies around. It's so cool to see people just gather together to support such an amazing, charity and cause. And yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It is every single year. It's a massive game. One of those on the calendar like Anzac Day. You just look forward to knowing that it's going to be a big crowd no matter how each team's going. And the fact that both of them are going pretty well at the moment just makes it even bigger, which is awesome.
Clayton Oliver coming back in opens the door, right? One of you two could be the first players to do the Queen King royal family double by winning
royal family double,
winning the best on for the Queen's birthday game and then winning the best on for the King's birthday game.
There you go.
The pressure, you had him last time. He stole
Shakers, I think, got the Brownlow votes on the day, though.
Yeah, because he kicked, 5 schnaggles?
Yeah, I think now 4.
4. 4 is not really best on stuff, is it?
It doesn't sound as nice. No, it's not a bag. Yeah, but no, Clayton Oliver, absolute gun. It'd be interesting to see if he comes back this week. That'll be a big question, I think, for the Melbourne side if he can get up for it. And yeah, it's an awesome experience. One, like I said, you look forward to on the calendar every single year, and it's going to be interesting to go up against the old mate Brodie Grundy. I don't think a lot of people are really amping up this. You would think because it was such a big deal over the trade period with Brodie. You think it'd be a headline like going into this whole game, but I haven't really seen much about it.
I think it's probably good that it's, there's charity involved, there's bigger
things at play.
Bigger things at play. But obviously, good luck to Brodie. I hope Brodie, has 30, kicks 2, and they lose by like 60 points or something. But, I mean, if he does that, you've had a terrible game.
Yeah.
But maybe you can just go head-to-head, 30, you kick 2.
I'm gonna really enjoy and have a smile on my face, I think, whenever we line up against each other in the center bounce. It's gonna be a weird feeling because we used to do that in training all the time, but obviously now this is for premiership points. But it would be a cool moment, I think, looking back on my career of like one of your good mates you get to go up against, and whoever wins and plays well over the weekend, credit to them. But I'm excited for it. It'll be good fun.
Now, in the boxing world, sometimes you're in the same training camp as each other.
Yeah.
And you'll have a moment from training that you hold over the other person.
Oh, here we go.
You have a moment, and then inevitably, when you have to fight for the title, you'll split up training camps, and then you'll come together. And normally in the smack talk, in the lead up, it's like, hey, remember that time I clipped you in training? Is there a moment between you and Brodie where you've got it over him? Or does he have it over you?
I think Brodie's probably got it over me being the person that's selected every single week for the last probably 9 years while I was playing. But I will say this though, and Brodie would know this, I won't back down from him, like talking shit to him. He knows if I'm playing well, I'll definitely get in his head, and he'll probably do the same to me because it's a bit of fun. But Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, it's going to be good fun and be a great ruck battle. Myself, Darcy Cameron, Max Gawn, Brody Grundy. And that's the two teams I think that are playing the double ruck. So it's going to be a big game for us big men out there. And yeah, it'll be interesting, to say the least.
What is your go-to sledge? Because it's pretty easy for you, I feel. Like you can, if you beat someone or you're having a better game than another ruckman, you'd be like, I didn't even know this game existed, mate. You've been playing it since you're a kid. Like it's a pretty easy dub. If you're beating someone, it's like, mate, I learned how to kick 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Like, what are you doing? I'm killing your ass.
Maybe Jack in the Box against Max Gawn. Oh, you must believe the little bum tap on the way out. If he misses it.
If Brody Grundy's having a set shot, you getting on the mark?
Oh, the shit talk will be on. Well and truly.
Oh, I can't wait for that. Keep an eye out for that because Brody's been having a few shots this year. Gets up around the forward line now. One more thing before we move on. Carlton Essendon. They got the
curtain raiser, essentially.
The curtain raiser. It sounds a bit disrespectful, but yeah.
The day before. Isn't that what a curtain raiser is?
Yeah. Carlton Essendon. They're doing this for the first time and they're anticipating a big crowd. I think they said 70,000. They're looking to get the day before the Collingwood-Melbourne clash. That should be a massive one. A lot in it for both teams, obviously. Carlton, every week, must-watch TV, not for the reason that most Carlton fans would probably be thinking at the start of the season, but Essendon just keeps getting it done. And with a win over North, it really opens it right up for them to play finals this year, which would be massive for them. And I feel like they've gone under the radar a little bit, especially their coach, Brad Scott, because everyone's been talking about Clarko, Sam Mitchell, Ross Lyon. Not a lot of people talking about Brad Scott, but he's just getting the job done. And he might be carrying this team to finals, which would be very, very interesting to see. Outside of that, I think we're all done. How was your little trip over to the West Coast?
It's good. Went to Rottnest Island, got a little picture of the quokka. A little selfie, and
didn't look very happy.
Well, no, dude, those things literally just walk up to you. It's insane. They are fully domesticated. There's one just jumping around in the actual cafe. Don't care. Just eating crumbs. I'm like, this is a zoo. Let's be honest. This island is a zoo. Really cool though. I saw an osprey nest. I don't know if you know what an osprey is. Big eagle. Oh, man, sick. Awesome. So cool. I'm a loser. All right, before we wrap up, we're going to launch the next 2 guests that are coming on the podcast. Yes, the first one is a teammate of mine that has played in the King's birthday match, not only for Collingwood, but also for Melbourne. He's a man who's played for both teams, one of the greatest men in the world. He is a person I have so much respect for and love so much. I'm excited for y'all to listen to this one. His name, Jeremy Howe. Yes, he's been on the sidelines for a bit because he absolutely snapped his arm in about 12 different places, but he's coming back soon and he's coming on the podcast before this big game over the weekend. It's going to be later in the week. Make sure you subscribe. Do not want to miss that one. But as we mentioned at the top of this podcast, we have a massive guest coming up. A guest that is world-renowned. Australian, one of the most famous athletes you will ever hear. He's a person who's surfed, yes, all over the world. He's sliding down into the ice bath at the Freeze MND game. He's an absolute legend, one of the most nice, genuine humans you'll ever meet. Mick Fanning is coming on to the podcast, and this is a juicy one.
That's massive. That's
massive.
He's a global superstar, Mace, and wow, we got him.
He's got some of the greatest stories from, we talk about the floods up in Gold Coast and some of the such amazing work he did, from just saving people's lives to delivering necessities to people whenever the floods had ravaged through the Gold Coast, to sending helicopters out to help others. He has got some amazing, amazing stories that we're going to talk through. And we'll obviously talk about his career and everything else, and his mom being his agent. That was pretty interesting, I thought. But there's so many good stories wrapped up in this one. You have to listen to this one. I cannot recommend it more. Make sure you're listening and you're subscribed so you do get the notification whenever it comes out next week.
And it's in person. It's not over the satellite. It's not in by the Skype. It's in person. Sit down with one of the greatest athletes in Australia, Mick Fanning.
And you make sure you're also with the socials, because we went through some of his stuff and some of his cool surfboards he talked about, and that's outside of the podcast. That's some extras we're going to throw into on the socials. And he showed us through his favorite surfboard. He showed us through his, he had his jet skis in the background, his Red Bull jet skis. He's a Red Bull athlete. He gets all that crazy stuff too. He is seriously the nicest human. And I cannot say that more enough. And I think it comes across very well in this podcast. I cannot wait for everyone to listen to this. It's going to be amazing.
A couple of big weeks coming up. They're just a little taste of what's to come in the rest of this year. So if you haven't already, subscribe, jump onto Spotify, jump onto Apple Podcasts, jump onto Google Podcasts, wherever you're getting your podcasts, jump on now. Get us to 4,000 subs on YouTube.
Huge.
Get around all the accounts. Just a little click of a button. Hit the little bell icon.
Does wonders for us.
You're set. It does wonders for us. It does wonders for you because you get to listen to the great content. And I think that's it for us, Mason Cox.
It is. We're going to leave on that crazy, insane drop. Freeze him indeed. Big fan of it. Get a beanie wherever you get it. And thanks so much for listening, legends. We'll speak to you next week.